I'm live. I'm reading Travels with My Aunt. It is a novel by Greene, published 1969, and it is about him meeting his Aunt Augusta after a long time. Anyway, we're in the second part of this book, chapter 4, and Henry is on his way to Paraguay to meet his aunt. He's not quite there yet, and I continue chapter 4. When I went up deck after breakfast, we were already approaching Asunción. Red cliffs were honeycombed with caves. Half-ruined huts stood at the very edge of the cliff, and naked children with the potbellies of malnutrition stared down at us as the boat passed, moving like an overfed man who picks his slow way home after a heavy meal, giving little belches on the siren. Above the huts, like a medieval castle dominating some wretched village of mud and wattle, stood the great white bastions of shell. O'Toole came and stood beside me as the immigration officers arrived on board. He asked, "Can I be of any help? Give you a lift or anything?" "Thank you very much, but I think I shall be met." The steerage passengers were going ashore. He said, "If you want any help at any time, I know most of the ropes. You'll find me at the embassy. They call me a second secretary. It's convenient." "You're very kind. You are a friend of Lucinda," he said. "Kathmandu seems a hell of a long way off. Maybe some mail will have come in." "Is she a good correspondent?" "She writes me picture postcards," he said. He leaned forward on the rail. "Isn't that your friend?" he asked. "What friend?" I looked at the steerage queue on the gangway and saw Wordsworth. "The man who spoke to you on shore." I said, "All coloured men look very much alike to me at that distance." "It's not often you see an African here," he said. "I guess it's your friend." When at last the formalities were over and I stood beside my luggage on the corner of a street named after Benjamin Constant, I looked around a while in vain for Wordsworth. Families exchanged greetings and drove away in cars. The Czech plastics manufacturer offered me a lift in his taxi. A small boy wanted to clean my shoes, and another tried to sell me American cigarettes. A long colonnaded street, which sloped uphill in front of me, was full of liquor shops, and old women sat against the wall with baskets of bread and fruit. In spite of the dirt and fumes of old cars, the air was sweet with orange blossom. Somebody whistled, and I turned to see Wordsworth getting out of a taxi. He lifted my 2 heavy suitcases as though they were empty cardboard boxes. "Ah, look for friend," he said. "Too plenty humbug here." He had never before been driven in quite such a decrepit. I had never before been driven in such a quite decrepit taxi. The lining was torn, and the stuffing leaked out of the seat. Wordsworth punched at it to make it more comfortable. Then he made motions to the driver, which the man seemed to understand. "We drive around a bit," Wordsworth said. "I want to see if they leave us alone." He looked out of the windows while the taxi ground and shook. All the other taxis which passed us were smart enough, and sometimes the drivers shouted what I took to be insults to our old man, who had a white moustache and a hat without a crown. "Suppose we are not left alone," I said. "What do we do?" "We took bloody good care," Wordsworth said vaguely. He seemed to have chosen the oldest taxi. Soldiers were goose-stepping in front of the cathedral, and a very early tank stood on a plinth up on the greensward. The orange trees were everywhere, some in fruit, some in blossom. "He good friend of mine." "You talk Spanish?" I asked. "No, he don't know no Spanish." "What does he talk?" "He talk Indian lingo." "How do you make him understand?" I give him smokes, Wordsworth says. He like pot. Except for the skyscraper of a new hotel, it was a very Victorian town. One soon ceased to notice the cars. They were an anachronism. There were mule carts and sometimes men on horses. There was a little white castellated Baptist church, a college built like a neo-Gothic abbey, and when we reached the residential quarter, I saw big stone houses with bosky gardens and pillared porticos above stone steps, which reminded me of the oldest part of Southwood. But in Southwood, the houses would have been split into flats, and the grey stone would have been whitewashed, and the roofs would have bristled with television masts. In place of the orange and banana trees, I would have seen neglected rhododendrons and threadbare lawns. "What is the name of my aunt's friend, Wordsworth?" I asked. "I don't remember," Wordsworth said. "I don't want to remember. I want to forget." A little crumbling house with Corinthian pillars and broken windows was called School of Architecture on a board, which had been split by the seasons, but, however, tumbled down the houses, the flowers were everywhere. A bush of jasmine blossomed with white and blue flowers on the same bush. "We stop here," Wordsworth said, and he shook the driver's shoulder. It was an enormous house with a great untidy lawn which ended in a dark green fuzz of trees, a small wood of banana, orange, lemon, grapefruit, lapacho. On the two sides, visible to me through the gates, wide stone steps led up to separate entrances. The walls were blotched with lichen and were 4 stories high. "It's a millionaire's house," I said. "You just wait," Wordsworth replied. The iron gates were rusty and padlocked. Worn pineapples were carved on the gateposts, but the gates, draped with barbed wire, had lost their dignity. A millionaire may have once lived there, I thought, but no longer. Wordsworth led me round the corner of the street, and we approached the house from the back through a little door which he locked behind him, and through the grove of sweet-smelling trees and bushes. "Hi," he called to the great square block of stone. "Hi," and got no response. The house and its solidity and its silence reminded me of the great family tombs in the cemetery at Boulogne. This was a journey end too. "Your auntie, she got a bit deaf," Wordsworth said. "She no young no more, no more." He spoke regretfully, as though he had known her as a girl, and yet she had been over 70 when she picked him up outside the Granada Palace. We went up one flight of stone steps and into the hall of the house. Paved with cracked marble, the big hall was unfurnished. The windows had been shuttered, and the only light came from a bare globe in the ceiling. There was no chair, no table, no sofa, no pictures. The one sign of human occupation was a mop which leaned against one wall, but it might have been left there a generation ago by someone hired to tidy up after the furniture removers had departed. "Hi," Wordsworth shouted. "Hi, Mr. Pullenby here," and I heard the click of high heels along a passage overhead. A flight of pink marble stairs rose to the first floor, and at the head of them my aunt appeared. The light was too dim to see her clearly, and it may have been my imagination which read into her voice an older, more tremulous tone than I had remembered. "Why, Henry," she said, "you are welcome home." She came slowly down the stairs, and perhaps it was the bad light which caused her to clutch the banister. "I'm so sorry," she said, "that Mr. Visconti is not here to greet you. I'd expected him yesterday." "Mr. Visconti?" "Yes," my aunt said, "Mr. Visconti. We're happily reunited. Did you bring the picture safely?" "I got it," Wordsworth said, holding up his new suitcase. "Mr. Visconti will be relieved." He was afraid of the customs. "You look well, Henry," she said, kissing my cheek and leaving on the air a smell of lavender. "Come, let me show you your room." She led me up to the first landing, which was as bare as the hall, and opened a door. This room at least contained a bed and a chair and a cupboard, though nothing else. My aunt may have thought some explanation was needed, for she said, "The furniture will be arriving any day now." I opened another door and saw a room which was empty, except for 2 mattresses laid together on the floor, and a dressing table, and a stool that looked new. "I have given you the bed," my aunt said, "but I couldn't do without my dressing table. Is this your room? Sometimes I miss my Venetian glass, but when the curtains go up and the furniture arrives, you must be hungry, Henry. Wordsworth will bring your bags. I have a little meal prepared." And I'll stop this here for now and take a break. Today is the 13th, Friday, 13th of February.